In the dim glow of the trading room, a man once whispered a sentence that would haunt me for years. The louder a trader talks about his profits, the closer he is to blowing up. It was 2014. Bitcoin had just crossed $1,000 for the first time, and the forums were flooded with self-proclaimed market wizards. Screenshots of account balances, P&L statements, luxury cars, and Rolexes filled every corner of social media. Everyone seemed to be printing money. Everyone was a genius. Except one man, Michael Stern. He was different, a quiet, middle-aged trader who never joined the noise. While others bragged about their leverage and monster gains, Michael just listened. He took notes. He asked questions. When he finally spoke, his words were calm, measured, and strangely haunting. When you understand the market, you stop needing to prove it. Back then, I didn't understand what he meant. To me, humility looked like weakness. If you were good, why hide it? Why not show the world your wins? But 2 months later, the market crashed. Overnight, the same traders who had flaunted their million-dollar gains were wiped out. Their accounts were gone. The noise vanished. And Michael? He was still there. Quiet, calm, profitable. That's when I began to realize a brutal truth. In trading, confidence whispers, but ego shouts. The traders who shout the loudest are often the ones seeking validation, not mastery. The truly successful ones, the survivors, carry a kind of quiet certainty that doesn't need applause. And that paradox, that strange inversion of success, became one of the greatest lessons of my career. I wasn't always humble. In fact, I started my trading journey with the same delusion that destroys most traders, the need to prove I was right. It was 2010. I had just turned 25, armed with a small trading account and an oversized sense of confidence. I devoured every trading book I could find, memorized chart patterns, and believed success was just a matter of finding the right strategy. In those early months, I caught a lucky break. A few well-timed trades during the post-2008 recovery turned my $5,000 account into nearly $20,000. That's all it took for the illusion to take root. I thought I'd cracked the code. I started bragging, subtly at first, posting screenshots on forums, sharing trading insights that were really just luck. I wanted to be seen as someone who knew. Then came the crash. One morning, I woke up to a market that didn't make sense anymore. My perfect setups failed. The same patterns that once printed money now bled red across my screen. I doubled down, averaged losses, took revenge trades. Within 3 weeks, my $20,000 account was gone. I remember staring at the balance. $183.72. The number didn't even feel real. That day, something inside me cracked. Not just financially, but psychologically. I realized I wasn't trading the market anymore. I was trading my ego. I needed the market to validate me, to prove I was as good as I said I was. That's why I overleveraged. That's why I couldn't cut losses, because cutting a loss wasn't just losing money, it was losing face. And that's when I understood the first illusion every trader faces. Most traders don't want to win. They want to be seen winning. The market, though, doesn't care about your image. It exposes you, it humbles you, and it keeps doing it until there's nothing left but truth. I disappeared from the forums for months after that. No posts, no charts, no advice. Just silence and a lot of shame. But that silence became the foundation for everything that came later. Because in that quiet space, I started to hear something I'd been drowning out all along. The market's voice. It doesn't speak to those who shout. It only whispers to those who listen. When I finally returned to trading, it wasn't the same battlefield anymore. I wasn't chasing setups. I was studying behavior, mine and others. That's when I started noticing a pattern that had nothing to do with charts. In trading communities, whether online or in prop firm circles, there were two types of traders: the loud ones and the quiet ones. The loud ones were everywhere. They posted screenshots of profits, talked about crushing the market, and spoke with absolute certainty about where price would go next. They argued in comment sections, ridiculed doubters, and acted as if humility was a sign of weakness. Then there were the quiet ones. You rarely saw them talk. They didn't post their trades or opinions. Sometimes you didn't even know they were profitable until you looked closely. They were the ones who showed up every day, methodically, without fanfare. The more I watched, the clearer the pattern became. The loud ones were usually struggling. The quiet ones were quietly winning. I met one of them during my time at a small proprietary trading desk in Singapore in 2013. His name was Daniel. He wasn't impressive at first glance. Mid-40s, soft-spoken, kept to himself. While others shouted across the room, Daniel barely said a word. But every Friday, he'd close his terminal, write something in a small notebook, and leave. One day, curiosity got the better of me. I asked him what he was writing. He smiled slightly and said, "Mistakes. They're more valuable than profits." That sentence stuck with me for years. I learned that Daniel had been through 3 account blowups before becoming consistently profitable. He told me something I'll never forget. Every time I lost, I thought the market was punishing me. But it wasn't. It was teaching me how to survive my own ego. He never raised his voice, never bragged. But everyone in the room knew his account curve was smooth, his consistency unmatched. Meanwhile, the loud traders, they rotated in and out every few months, their chairs emptying like clockwork. That was the year I learned that true confidence in trading is quiet. It doesn't need to prove anything. Because when you're truly aligned with the market, you don't fight for recognition, you fight for survival. And paradoxically, the more you need to show the world you're winning, the less likely you are to keep winning. Trading humbles everyone eventually. The market is the great equalizer. It strips away illusion, reputation, and noise until only one thing remains: skill built on discipline and humility. By the time I left that prop desk, I realized something profound about traders like Daniel. They weren't quiet because they were secretive. They were quiet because they respected the game. And respect always starts where ego ends. Ego is the most dangerous position you can hold in the market because it blinds you to risk. Every trader starts with it. I did too. That invisible belief that you can outsmart the market, that you're one trade away from proving your worth. It's intoxicating because it's not about money, it's about identity. When traders post profits online, when they boast about calling the top, it's rarely about education, it's about validation. They want the world to see that they've beaten something no one else can fully control. It's a way of saying, "Look at me, I matter." But here's the paradox. The moment you trade to prove something, you stop trading objectively. You begin trading your ego. I've watched this play out countless times. In a prop environment, it's almost predictable. A new trader gets a few good weeks, builds confidence, then suddenly becomes vocal, offering unsolicited advice, mocking others' losses. The moment that shift happens, you can practically mark it on the calendar. They're about to blow up. The ego feeds on being right, but markets feed on uncertainty. And when those two forces collide, the market always wins. Daniel, the quiet trader I mentioned earlier, once told me something that became a cornerstone of my trading philosophy. The market doesn't punish arrogance, it balances it. That idea changed everything for me. I started looking at charts differently. Every time I caught myself saying, "I know what will happen next," I forced myself to stop and write, "You don't know. You have a hypothesis." This small ritual dismantled the illusion of certainty that ego builds. Because the truth is, trading isn't about knowing, it's about adapting. And ego hates adaptation. Ego wants control. It wants to be right, not rich. That's why the loud traders flame out. They cling to their predictions long after the market has proven them wrong. They confuse conviction with stubbornness, and risk management becomes an afterthought. The humble trader, however, sees the market as a mirror. Every loss reflects a flaw in perception, not a personal failure. Every win is a moment of alignment, not dominance. The irony is humility isn't weakness in trading. It's defensive strength. It's what keeps you in the game long enough to evolve. After 15 years, I've learned that ego never fully disappears. You can't kill it, but you can tame it. You tame it by admitting that every trade is uncertain. You tame it by respecting your stop loss like a contract with yourself. And you tame it by remembering that the market doesn't care who you are, it only responds to discipline. The loud traders lose because they mistake attention for validation. The quiet traders win because they understand that the only validation that matters is longevity. At some point, the goal stops being to beat the market. The goal becomes to outlast everyone who's still trying to.
There comes a point in every trader's journey when silence stops being weakness and becomes a weapon. For me, that moment came after my second account blowup. I wasn't new anymore. I'd been trading for years, thought I'd mastered my emotions, thought I had discipline. But the truth was harsher. I was disciplined only when the market obeyed me. It was after a brutal week in early 2017. I had shorted the British pound aggressively, expecting a deep continuation after Brexit. The setup was clean, the logic sound, my conviction absolute. And then the Bank of England stepped in. Within minutes, the market reversed 200 pips. I sat there, frozen, watching my profits vanish, then turn into losses, and finally into silence. Not the silence of calm, but the silence of disbelief. When I closed the trade, the account was down 40%. And as I stared at the chart, I realized something I'd been blind to for years. Noise had been running my trading, not knowledge. I craved validation from my peers. I was in 3 trading groups, posting setups every morning, arguing about fundamentals, comparing entries. I thought it was collaboration, but it was performance. I wasn't trading to win. I was trading to look smart. So I did something extreme. I left all the groups, deleted social media, stopped talking about trades. For 3 months, I traded in complete silence. No chat rooms, no opinions, just me and the market. At first, it was lonely, painfully so. Without the dopamine hit of likes or "good call, bro," I felt invisible. But then, something strange began to happen. My trades became cleaner, my analysis sharper. I stopped forcing trades that didn't align with my system because there was no one to impress. I was trading only when the setup deserved risk, not when my ego demanded action. That's when I understood why the great traders are often silent. It's not because they're secretive, it's because they're focused. Silence is clarity. It forces you to listen, not to others, but to your own biases, your emotions, your instincts. There's a line from Jesse Livermore's memoir that I used to overlook, but it finally made sense. It never was my thinking that made the big money for me. It was my sitting. Sitting in silence is where real mastery begins. It's in those quiet moments, between entries and exits, that you begin to see the market as it is, not as you wish it to be. And that's when humility transforms from a moral trait into a tactical edge. When you're silent, you can observe what loud traders can't: the rhythm of liquidity, the exhaustion in momentum, the subtle footprints of institutional flow. The quiet trader moves when everyone else is reacting. He doesn't need to announce his position because his confidence is internal, not external. That shift from noise to silence was the moment my trading career truly began. It wasn't the size of my wins that changed, but the quality of my decisions. And the irony? Once I stopped trying to prove I was a trader, I finally became one.
When you observe enough traders over the years, hundreds, maybe thousands, you start to notice a strange pattern. It has nothing to do with strategy, broker, or account size. It's invisible at first, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The most successful traders all share a rhythm, not of technique, but of psychology. They move differently. They think in silence, act with patience, and reflect without ego. It's not that they never speak. It's that their words are few and precise, born from experience, not emotion. And their humility isn't a pose. It's the product of pain that's been metabolized into wisdom. Over time, I began calling it the quiet cycle. Every consistent trader I knew passed through the same 4 phases. Noise, the stage of obsession, charts, alerts, news feeds, telegram groups. The trader is drowning in information but starving for insight. Pain. The losses accumulate. The market humbles you. You start questioning everything. This is where most traders quit or double down on delusion. Isolation. The survivor retreats. You stop following the herd, not out of arrogance, but exhaustion. You trade alone, study quietly, listen deeply. Flow. Finally, the market slows down in your mind. You no longer chase setups. Setups come to you. You see liquidity like a map, volatility like a language. Most traders never reach the 4th stage because they're too busy broadcasting their progress in the first. Every post, every screenshot, every 10R win is another withdrawal from the account of focus. The truth is, humility isn't the result of winning. It's what allows you to keep winning. When you stop needing the world to validate your analysis, you start seeing the market for what it truly is, a mirror that reflects your discipline back to you. There's also something deeply paradoxical about trading mastery. The better you become, the less certain you feel. Inexperienced traders crave confidence. Veteran traders crave clarity. Confidence says, I know I'm right. Clarity says, I know what to do when I'm wrong. That subtle shift from proving to adapting separates the loud from the lasting. Because when you understand that the market doesn't owe you anything, you stop fighting it and start aligning with it. This humility creates a compounding effect. You start cutting losses faster because your ego no longer resists being wrong. You let winners run longer because you've learned to detach from the outcome. You no longer seek the thrill of the trade, you seek the truth of it. And that truth is often uncomfortable. Most of the time, the market rewards silence, patience, and restraint, qualities that look boring to outsiders but feel sacred to those who've earned them. In fact, I once had a mentor who told me something I never forgot.
The best traders I know don't have YouTube channels. They have calendars full of quiet days and accounts full of quiet profits. That's the invisible pattern. The real professionals don't look successful. They operate successfully. Their humility isn't for show. It's survival. By the time you realize this, trading stops being a competition and becomes a craft. And once you start treating it as a craft, one defined by mastery, patience, and self-awareness, the game changes forever.
There's a thin, almost invisible line between confidence and ego in trading, and most traders cross it without even noticing. At first, ego feels like confidence. It feels like progress. You've had a few winning trades, your equity curve is finally rising, and suddenly you feel like you've figured it out. You start predicting instead of reacting. You start preaching instead of learning. And in the worst cases, you start believing the market owes you consistency simply because you deserve it. That's the point where most traders unknowingly step into their downfall. I've seen it countless times, in students, in colleagues, even in myself. After a winning streak, the trader starts trading larger. They start taking marginal setups because momentum is on my side. They stop journaling, stop backtesting, stop thinking in probabilities. And when the market inevitably snaps back, they're caught naked, emotionally and financially. The ego's favorite disguise is confidence without context. It's the illusion that your recent performance reflects permanent skill. But trading doesn't work like that. The market constantly rebalances. It punishes arrogance and rewards awareness. True confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't manifest as bragging rights or profit screenshots. It's a quiet knowing that you can take a loss without losing yourself. It's the ability to say, "I was wrong," faster than your equity can bleed out. When I was mentoring younger traders, I noticed something curious. The loudest ones, those who spoke in absolutes, often blew up first. The humble ones, the ones who constantly asked, "What am I missing?" they lasted. Because humility doesn't weaken you, it keeps you flexible. There's a quote I often share with them. Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. It sounds harsh, but in markets, it's deadly accurate. Ego numbs you. It blinds you to risk. It makes you hold on to losers because admitting defeat feels worse than losing money. It makes you double down when you should be stepping away. Confidence, on the other hand, is built on truth. It's built on data, discipline, and detachment. It's not, "I will win this trade." It's, "I will execute this setup according to plan." That's why real traders, the long-term survivors, carry themselves differently. They're calm in drawdowns, grounded in profits, and emotionless in between. They don't chase praise, they chase precision. In my 15th year of trading, I can tell instantly who's still playing the ego game. It's not about the car they drive or the account they show, it's about their language. The way they talk about the market tells you everything. Ego-driven traders say, "I knew it would go up." Confident traders say, "The setup followed my plan." One statement seeks validation, the other seeks consistency. That's the difference between trading for attention and trading for mastery. And until a trader learns to recognize which one drives them, no amount of strategy will save them. Because in the end, the market doesn't destroy traders, their own ego does. It's not the losses that kill your account, it's the refusal to admit them. Once you understand that, you stop fearing being wrong
and start fearing staying wrong. That shift, subtle but profound, is where real growth begins. It's where discipline finally overpowers desire. And it's why in every cycle of traders I've seen, humility always outlasts hype.
There comes a point in every trader's journey when the market stops being the enemy and becomes the mirror. For most, that moment arrives quietly, not during a spectacular win, but in the wreckage after a crushing loss. I still remember mine. It was during the Euro crisis, when volatility spiked overnight. I had doubled my position before the weekend, convinced that I was aligned with the smart money. Monday opened with a 300 pip gap against me. By the time I closed the position, I had erased 4 months of profit in less than an hour. I didn't sleep that night, not because of the money, though it hurt, but because of what it revealed about me. I realized I wasn't trading the market anymore. I was trading my ego, my need to be right, my fear of missing out, and my obsession with being seen as successful. That's when it hit me. The charts weren't the problem. I was. It's a brutal kind of clarity, the kind that strips you bare. You see every impulsive entry, every over-leveraged trade, every lie you told yourself to justify holding a loser. You see how many times you prayed for price to turn instead of admitting you were wrong. And in that mirror, you meet the real trader, the one behind the facade of discipline and the illusion of control. That night, I shut down my platform and opened my trading journal instead. I wrote one sentence that would later redefine my entire career. If I can't manage myself, I have no business managing risk. It sounds simple, almost cliché, but it was the truth I had avoided for years. From that point forward, I stopped chasing the next system, the next indicator, the next holy grail. Instead, I started chasing self-awareness. I rewatched my trades, not to find better entries, but to study my emotions. When did I hesitate? When did I force it? What triggered the tilt? I treated every trade like a psychological experiment, not a financial bet. And slowly, things changed. The wins didn't come faster, but they became cleaner. The losses didn't sting as much because they were planned, not emotional. I began to see that mastery wasn't about predicting the market. It was about mastering my reactions to it. That's the moment every trader must face if they want to survive long term. You can't hide behind luck forever. The market will always find your weakness, impatience, pride, greed, fear, and amplify it until you learn. Most traders never reach that point of reflection. They quit before they ever meet the mirror. But those who stay, those who endure, they transform. They stop asking, how can I beat the market? And start asking, what is the market trying to teach me? That's when trading stops being about charts and numbers. It becomes a spiritual pursuit, a battle between discipline and desire, awareness and arrogance. And that's where the real journey begins.
When you've been broken by the market once, you either quit or you rebuild. But the rebuild never looks like the old ambition. It's quieter, slower, less about making money, more about earning peace. For me, rebuilding started with subtraction, not addition. I deleted every indicator, every secret system, every flashy trading course PDF that once promised success. My charts went from a rainbow of noise to nothing but naked candles. At first, it felt like blindness. No signals, no arrows, no dopamine rush of indicators lining up perfectly. Just me, the price, and the truth. And then something unexpected happened. I started seeing patterns I had missed for years. Not the textbook kind, but the emotional ones. The panic candles when retail traders capitulate. The hesitation wicks when big money tests liquidity. The quiet pauses before volatility erupts. It was like learning a new language, the language of intent. My trades became fewer but cleaner. My stop losses became tighter, not because I feared losing, but because I respected risk. And, most importantly, my self-talk changed. I stopped saying, "I hope this works," and started saying, "I'll execute my plan." The more disciplined I became, the quieter my confidence grew. I didn't need to announce my wins anymore. I didn't even feel the urge to screenshot a profitable trade. The thrill was gone, replaced by something steadier: clarity. Around that time, I mentored a small group of traders. One of them, Alex, was a mirror of my younger self. Smart, intense, but addicted to proving he was right. He'd message me after every win with screenshots and bravado. Then one week, he vanished. When he finally replied, he admitted he had blown up his account again. He said something I'll never forget. "I kept wanting to show people I could trade, instead of actually learning how to trade." That sentence hit me like déjà vu. It was the same trap I had lived in years ago, seeking validation instead of consistency. So I told him what I wish someone had told me back then. Trading isn't a performance, it's a discipline. The market doesn't care who you impress, only who survives. Rebuilding isn't glamorous. There are no viral moments, no dramatic wins. It's the repetition that makes you stronger. The journaling, the risk control, the patience to wait for your setup, even if it takes days. Some days, I'd go a whole week without taking a trade. Old me would have called that laziness. New me called it maturity. Because mastery isn't about doing more. It's about knowing when to do nothing. The deeper I went into this phase, the more I realized how wrong my earlier version of success had been. Back then, I thought mastery meant never losing. Now I know it means never losing control. When you reach that stage, something magical happens. Your equity curve starts mirroring your emotional curve. Both become smoother, less erratic, more sustainable. That's what quiet mastery looks like. No fireworks, no flexing, just stability. And in the chaos of the markets, stability is the rarest form of power.
In the end, every trader who survives long enough comes to the same realization. The goal was never to conquer the market. It was to conquer yourself. You start the journey thinking you'll get rich. You stay in the game thinking you'll get respect. But if you endure long enough, you realize the real reward is freedom. Freedom from needing to prove, predict, or perform. That's why the truly successful traders, the ones who've seen the full cycle, the euphoria and the despair, rarely talk much. They're not hiding secrets. They've just learned that words can't teach what pain already has. When I look back at my 15 years in the markets, the loudest people I met burned out fastest. They shouted their wins, cursed their losses, blamed the brokers, praised their systems. It was all noise until they disappeared. The survivors, though, the quiet ones, they were different. They journaled religiously. They disappeared during drawdowns, not to hide, but to study. When they spoke, it was calm, measured, like people who've made peace with volatility itself. It's not humility for show. It's humility born from scars. They've seen enough to know how fragile confidence can be, how deceptive success is, how one bad trade can undo a year of work. They don't need to look like traders anymore. They are traders.
I remember meeting an old mentor in Singapore, a man who'd traded through the 2008 crisis and lived to tell the tale. He was sitting in a small cafe, laptop open, sipping black coffee. No Rolex, no noise, no entourage, just charts and silence. I asked him, "Do you ever get bored? You've already mastered this." He smiled and said, "You never master the market. You master the waiting." That line never left me. It summed up everything the young traders on social media never understand. Mastery isn't about control. It's about surrender. The market moves where it wants. Your only job is to be ready when it aligns with your preparation. And when that alignment happens, when your plan, patience, and price action converge, it feels effortless. That's when you realize trading isn't a battle. It's a dialogue. The market speaks, and you either listen or interrupt. That's why the successful traders stay silent, because they've learned the power of listening. Listening to the charts, listening to their emotions, listening to the subtle shifts that scream louder than any headline. These traders know that the real wealth isn't in the profit, it's in the process. It's in being able to walk away when you should, to stay calm when everyone else panics, to let the market breathe instead of forcing it to obey. When you reach that level, trading stops being a profession. It becomes a meditation. You no longer chase, you wait. You no longer boast, you observe. And you no longer measure success by money, but by how little the market can disturb your peace. That's the paradox of trading. The quieter you become, the more you hear. The humbler you are, the more the market reveals. And the less you need to prove, the more you start to win. Not in dollars, but in discipline. So the next time you see a trader who says little, who trades rarely, who never flexes, don't mistake their silence for weakness. It's the silence of someone who's already seen both sides of the game and finally learned which one truly matters.